Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly with How Low Can We Go? 55%. Malevolent.
And there's the silence because everyone's like, malevolent. Is that malignant? Is that what is that? Is that malevolence? Because this is a pretty
Maleficent?
generic. Is it maleficent? Right. Yeah, there's a lot of generic versions of this title being used.
Yes.
Around. Okay.
So how low can we go? Where we start at 59%, work our way down, 1 point at a time. Sammy Hagar can't drive this fast.
You should drop that in. Will that get us 55? Oh, you're just going to manually do it.
Do it. That shit's expensive. You can't. You think we can
You saved
afford
us.
Sammy Hagar for this shit, dude?
No, the license you just saved us like $55,000.
Yeah, that better be how much that song cost. The
Right?
license.
It's increments of 55 blocks of 5,500.
You get only use 55 seconds of it.
Indeed.
Okay.
So, this movie stars Florence Pugh. It's a really interesting cast. I don't want to spoil the credits of the one actress that we're going to talk about, but it's basically kind of like the last extras on the plot. It's a group of people who are quote unquote paranormal investigators, but are faking it. They're con artists. So they do con some people. We see that actually transpire, and then they get called onto another job where they hit the real.
Yeah,
like paranormal stuff.
The way you described it to me, because I knew nothing about it.
Right.
Like,
no one listening knew anything.
I'm so used. So like with How Low Can We Go? I'm so used to us like trying to like. So like we pick a movie, but then there's an added challenge of like even when we pick a movie, we don't know where it's streaming. Like we have to find it somehow.
Right.
And
we're just picking it and then figuring everything out.
Yeah, and then we just
because it's about which one we pick. That's the fun. Right.
Yeah, and so when you were like it's on Netflix, I was like, that leads me to two. That leads me to two things.
Yes.
One, it's gonna suck. One, it's gonna suck. Or two, it's gonna suck. So, that was my two.
That's such a giveaway. I think that this movie is this series, The Unborn. I think this is the Jumbie of the series.
I kind of got early 2000. This movie felt like it should have been made in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. And it's set in the 80s, but doesn't feel like it's
dude,
set in the 80s at all.
There is zero reason this movie should have taken place in the 80s.
I actually have a theory about that. It's fun. I kind of appreciated what happened here. It was like they set it in the 80s, and then they thought, we just don't want to copy what anyone else does, so let's take out anything anyone else has done. And they took out everything 80s.
Yeah.
And ended up here. There's a great story about the writer Sable Beckett and James Joyce. They're like literary figures. And the one guy, James Joyce taught Sable Beckett. Sable Beckett always felt like he was writing like his teacher, and he hated it. So he taught himself French. He wrote novels in French and then translated them back into English. He filtered out his teacher's voice by doing that. And I feel like they filtered out the 80s. And this is what you get. You get like photo negative 80s or something.
Yeah, it was so weird. Like there's because when it started, I was like, oh, like this is gonna be kind of like a period piece. Like it's gonna be the 80s. Like that's gonna be cool. Because the only other one that's really been a period piece was Taste the Blood of Dracula.
Right.
And I was like, "What's this Netflix? This apparently has Netflix behind it. Maybe they got a budget. This will be like Stranger Things,
right?
Or whatever."
Yeah.
No. Taste the Blood of Dracula just whopped you with its costumes and stuff.
It's amazing that happened that way. It's so weird and interesting that it ended up.
Did they have a reason?
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's a reason. But here's the real thing is I think that this movie. I think this movie sits in the monolithic shadow of The Conjuring. And I think almost all paranormal movies made
two things
sit in the shadow of The Conjuring. So it's set in The Conjuring.
Yes.
It's not set in the 80s or any time period. It's set in The Conjuring. Conjuring is...
It's funny. I felt a little bit like it was in the shadow of The Conjuring. Mm-hmm. But then it's so weird. And this is why I think Mike Flanagan is the best working...
I was hoping
horror
you would
director.
do this.
That dude has reprogrammed my brain of how I watch ghost movies and shows.
I was so hoping you would do that.
Yeah, the whole time I'm watching this movie, I was looking at the windows, thinking ooh, maybe we'll see a face of something here or something. We'll have a little bit more, pizzazz to it. None. The pizzazz went up with the '80s, '80s theme.
Right.
But I found myself doing things that I would do when I'm watching Hill House or Bly Manor.
Sure. Or Midnight Mass, right?
Yeah, and and it was kind of a letdown because you're like anticipating like that.
I
level
love
of
this
excellence.
movie, so I'm going to fight for it. But I could totally see that because I thought it while I was watching it.
Yeah,
I was like, how much? Because the problem is there are two ways to go with something like this, right? Well, there's really three ways to go. The one way is just like the really Paranormal Activity, like just low budget, stripped down, straight on whatever it is. Just do the paranormal part. Forget the characters in it. Mm-hmm. The other thing is you could do it like really elaborate, like really big budget, like Netflix. You would think Netflix would do it, but they didn't do it, right? I have
a feeling this was produced and Netflix bought it. I have a
that
gut,
could
I have a
totally
gut feeling.
Be.
But I don't know. I'm pulling that out of my ass.
No, it doesn't matter. The thing is, if I had Mike Flanagan in my mind while I was watching this, I would feel let down too. I just think to myself that this one was caught in between. It was trying to be serious enough that it was doing Flanagan-esque things. And so then then your brain went there, right? But if it had just done Saw, your brain wouldn't have gone there. But the problem was it was sort of doing, like I said, House of Wax plus Woman in Black.
That sold me on it. That made me really excited to watch it.
Right.
Because it just kind of looked really generic.
Right, totally.
At first, but then I was like, Woman in Black with House of Wax is a really kind of cool combo, which is funny because I don't really like Woman in Black. I think it's kind of boring.
Right.
But I love House of Wax.
That's so interesting.
So I was like, well, let's just see how this movie plays out. I'll just say right now, the second half is a different movie. I was really bored with the first half.
Sure. There's a lot of setup that goes on.
Oh my god!
But I actually love the setup part because the thing to me was that so first of all, paranormal movies are good at being episodic, right? So like whatever starts a movie, I think of could be small, medium, or large, right? So the small version is Jason Lives. You get like a fun 90-second segment or however long that opening goes. They cut to the James Bond credits, and then you're in Friday the 13th. And you don't think about that scene again, except for, the implications of whatever out of the scene, but it's really short. Halloween 2018 was longer, right? Like you follow the podcasters all the way to meet Michael Myers, and then it goes to the credits or whatever. This one is like the first 20 minutes of the movie before you even find out about Mrs. Green, which is the main plot of the movie. Like there's a big chunk of this movie that's just totally not related to the rest of the movie.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time setting up the fact that one, mom's dead. Two, she does have a gift. And I mean,
they spent a lot of time.
There's a string where like every other sentence is when mom died, when mom clawed her eyes out, when mom jumped off a roof. It's just mom.
I think Florence Pugh's performance was so good I wasn't noticing it, but that's totally there. You're right.
She was
incredible.
She was great,
as always.
The brother,
Jackson
was a little stiff.
So Jackson had a difficult. Yeah, well, I know he sold himself to you a little bit at the end, so that's awesome. But the thing about Jackson was he had a particularly hard challenge. He has to get right up in the camera. They kept making him fourth wall it.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was helping her con people. And whenever they had doubts, he was like the closer or the recloser. He had to get right up in their face and be like, I guarantee you, we will cleanse this house of all the voices and demons, and you have my word. And he would go right up into the camera. I'm like, he's not good enough actor right now to do that. Right? Why do you do that? But it worked kind of because the character is not up to what he's being asked to do at any time in his life.
Yeah.
And we're saying the actor is the same, so it kind of lined up. Right? I kind of was like lost track of is he the character or is he just not? Is he just doing corny acting? I couldn't. But then I was like, wait, maybe he's just representing the character.
Yeah, that is interesting. For me, it came off as like kind of
generic and weak, right?
Yeah, well, it was a mixed bag of acting, but for some reason, and this is, I don't know if an actor's ever done this in a movie before, but like it like a light switched, like it flipped the moment, because throughout the whole movie he's doubting what's Florence Pugh's
Angela.
He's doubting that Angela can see stuff because his mom saw stuff and they all think it's crazy, but you as the audience you know that she's definitely seeing some shit like her mom.
Right. And so Angela can see it. The brother doesn't believe she can see it. He doesn't see it at all.
Doesn't see it at all.
I don't remember if he knew that his mom actually saw it or just thought she was crazy.
I think he thought she was nuts.
So he didn't believe in any of it. Okay.
No. Just like the
but she clawed her own eyes out. So
like a normal person.
Right.
But the moment he saw the ghost and what is it with like when you use too much brain power, your nose is like, I better bleed.
Yeah.
No one's ever like bleeding
like
out their
fire
ass.
Starter.
You know what I mean? It's just like, you know.
That movie's been made. We've never seen it.
We've never seen it.
It's never been released.
But the moment when his nose started bleeding and he saw it, I thought that was such a cool moment.
Yeah.
And the character completely flipped. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, whatever the character's going through here, that dude is way better at acting.
Interesting.
In that moment. But
that's so funny because I am so glad you said that because this character is Charlie's dad in Firestarter.
Yeah.
Right? Like just he's trying to make things work and get from point A to point B and like whatever, but he's in trouble. This guy's got loan sharks after him and you know, he gets beat up at one point, right? Like
yeah.
Trying to
he owes a lot of people money.
He owes
his grandfather money.
He was a mess. Florence Pugh is amazing. I just want to say something real quick because I got to tell you what this is mind-boggling, right? So the acting in here is actually really good overall, obviously, but Florence Pugh is amazing.
It's hard to like act like next to her when you're not like like she was really like top of the line.
Right, and also what's weird is that it's really minimalist though. It doesn't seem like she's doing a lot at any moments. Elizabeth Moss does this, right? Where they're really still and just micro expressions are amazing.
I totally thought of Elizabeth Banks when you first said that. And I was like, I never took you as like a Elizabeth didn't know you fancied her as an actress. No, but yeah, Elizabeth Moss. Yeah.
But Celia Imrie is playing Mrs. Green, who obviously spoilers galore. It turns out to be, I guess, the main villain of this, right? Ever. But she was voted one of the most successful British actresses of her generation in 2003.
Right.
And the idea of her and Florence Pugh just acting against each other in scenes like basically by themselves with a couple ghosts, it's like that Silence of the Lambs dynamic. It's literally like Jodie Foster or Anthony Hopkins. It feels like that level of when they're going after each other. But my favorite this is amazing to me. So there's a motif in here where the villain is haunted by the screaming of these girls. Well, she's not haunted. She is eventually, but she hates the screaming of these girls. She takes it out on the girls, and she wants to sew their mouths shut and cut out their tongues, presumably. And that's what she wants things quiet. She's really into quiet. She keeps being like, you be quiet or keep it quiet or hush or sure. She says every synonym. She's like a thesaurus of quiet.
Yeah.
She's the one sewing the mouth shut, right? There's a moment when she turns on Jackson and says, you paranormal investigators are a fraud. You're acting. She's like, I want you out of my house immediately. And he starts doing the thing. This is the thing. When he has to save it. He's the recloser. So he's like, I give you my word, Mrs. Green. We're going to pull this off, Mrs. Green. And she goes, be quiet. And you know that it's the exact way she sounded when she snapped and did the thing to the girls. And the way she delivers just that line is amazing, right? And so she's pulling off that stuff. Florence Pugh, when she goes killer, she's scarier than almost anything else in this movie when she gets really mad at the end. So she's got this amazing acting, and the fact that they're bouncing off each other, I just feel like is a different level than like what you expect this movie to be when you say it's on Netflix and all that stuff. There are those things that were happening there were amazing to me that don't belong in movies that are 55% of Rotten Tomatoes on Netflix.
What I think was really cool is how the cameraman was an actual crash test dummy. Like that guy, holy smokes. That dude, listen.
He took a real beating.
I'm surprised. Like he reminded me of there was an achievement in the video game Team Fortress 2, where you play as the heavy. He's a big guy with a lot of health and a minigun.
Okay.
And there's an achievement you got called Rasputin, and it was like be caught on. You have to like get caught on fire, a bunch of damage from like a bunch of different characters, and then survive. And I kept thinking about that because this camera guy, he follows around Florence Pugh while she's doing her.
Who knew camera guys were this tough?
Well, they're not. I've worked with them. They're pretty.
So you're saying it's unrealistic?
It's very unrealistic. Right. He falls through, and he falls like it looks like 2 stories. Like he falls a significant height.
Yeah,
breaks his ankle, and I love how every horror.
This doesn't
movie,
bother you in Home Alone.
No, Home Alone.
I mean, it is Home Alone. He Home Alone his way.
He Home Alone himself. Like which just doesn't happen. Usually there's some little shit on the other side.
And we just watched Daniel Stern. So
I know
he's just made out of Daniel Stern. Like whatever.
He's got that Daniel Stern material.
He's made out of Daniel Stern material.
I'll say this: how come in every horror movie, like I've seen, like when people break their ankles in like sports, like you see it all the time.
Yeah,
like, it just kind of bends funny, and then for like a half a second. Anytime someone breaks their ankle in a horror movie, it's like a gaping wound.
Bones extruding.
Yeah, blood everywhere. And I was just kind of watching it like, for some reason. Because how many horror movies have we watched where someone falls through a thing and their leg breaks?
Right.
For some reason, watching this one was when I drew the line, and I was like, "Why is it always gotta?"
That's amazing. It's like how every car in the 80s blew up when it hit anything. Like it just burst into a ball of fire. Well, you're like, we all have exploding ankles now? What is happening?
It's funny you mentioned the 80s. This film had like a fucking yardstick in front of it with the 80s. Like, no, stay away. We can't let you look like the 80s. He falls. Okay, so he falls through the floor.
Yes, he does.
And he like hoists himself up.
Yeah.
And then
I said he's like Gina Davis's boyfriend in The Fly. He like crutches his way over to slowly.
His hands getting melted off.
Yeah.
Falls to the floor. Gets in a car accident.
Yeah.
Like flies through the windshield.
Yeah.
Like he's in like a bad car accident. Walks his way back to the house to get stabbed. How many times do you think he gets stabbed?
Oh yeah, it was like 30, and they showed all of them.
It was more than 8.
It was like,
and he just keeps getting stabbed and screaming.
It's more than 8. I'm fascinated that 8 is your threshold. For mayhem.
8 is
like 7 is fine. But
7
9 is over the line.
8 is like we get it.
We get it. You're obsessive.
Yeah, even you got to keep it even.
Right.
You're
gonna get even numbers there.
But yeah, no, that guy
he took a LB. Well, like I said, sometime the final guy in the Hills Have Eyes remake, the 2003 I think version.
Yeah,
take a look at the beating that guy takes when he's still standing at the end of the Hills Have Eyes.
He goes through a lot. As soon as you said that, I was like, my brain was like, oh yeah, that guy kind of does get the shit.
Because I always when that movie's over, I'm like, there's no way that guy's still upright. There's just it's not possible. He's like an accountant or something. I forget what his. Okay.
What'd you think of the music?
The thing is, I didn't notice the music was bad. The music's bad, but I didn't notice the music was bad when I watched it because I don't have a great sound system. But I came over, I watched it, and you had like your speakers on and I was like, oh yeah, this is not great. The matter of fact. There was a shot where you thought the movie was ending, and I totally saw because it felt like that might be where the movie ends. And you did that thing we all do internally, except for you did say it out loud. You groaned, and you were like, "Oh, don't let this."
Yeah, it was right after the big bad gets killed, and it cuts to like a shot of the sky, and I was like, "Don't you dare!"
Right, but part of why that shot was so bad was because the music really badly swelled.
Yeah,
and it didn't earn it. Like it sounded like the world was ending, but the stakes were.
So I love the Texas Chainsaw remake.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really like it. I think visually it's really like spot on.
Right.
But I remember the last time I rewatched it, one of the things that stuck out like a sore thumb was the really shitty like MIDI keyboard orchestra score.
Oh, okay. So why would this have that so much later?
Well, so this didn't have the shitty orchestra thing, but what it did was during scenes of dialogue, it put in that early 2000s background music to sort of fill the scene. So like they're talking and you hear
like that low.
Yeah, it's really low, but it's that I mean, I swear to God, I bet that sound file is called scary music. Like it has to be, and it
Or it's called low and unnecessary.
yeah, low and unnecessary. Because that's the thing is like with those scenes, like I mean, just think about this
Right.
for like 2 seconds, okay?
Right.
You're in the editing room. You have a movie about this like castle, or this like not castle, but it's a big like sort of in the countryside.
Yeah, totally.
It's an isolated thing.
Oh, it's a mansion.
Yeah. Why don't you give us some isolation to match the house? Like that woman's all by herself. So how come when we're just talking to each other, we have to have elevator
That's
music?
such a good point.
Like make it silent. Like that. If you lose that soundtrack,
Right.
it's just going to add a little bit more silence
No,
to
you're
it.
totally right.
And a little bit of silence.
No,
goes a
no,
long
you're
way.
totally right. And you know what's funny is the Ninth Gate, which got ignored when it was released, but I think has come around for a lot of people. It is maybe the same level of budget this would have been, right? And it does that. It has the music where it needs it, and in the places where the atmosphere is totally spare, it just lets you be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And it really
this totally did not do that.
It really, really pulls you out.
1,000%. I agree. I noticed it. Matter of fact, that was like when that shot happened, I was more appalled by the music than the shot.
Yeah.
And you were like, I hope it doesn't end here. I'm like, I hope it doesn't end here because of the music.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of things that like early aughts movies would do because it was just like maybe that's just maybe what you did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So that kind of that sucked in the
Now
80s thing.
let's just real quick talk about, because you actually came to the genre earlier than me. The hostile, torture porn, like whatever. This goes kind of torture porn for what?
For a hot minute.
Yeah, for a hot minute. What did you think of all that stuff?
That part actually made me like go like my jaw kind of dropped. I didn't realize, was she cutting his tongue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for some reason.
And she had that technique to make him stick his tongue out.
Yeah, that part shocked me, but it's so funny like
Because she totally did that Kathy Bates Misery style. She was just relentless and calm, and it was great.
it was. I mean, that part was really spot on. When I watched it, for some reason, it looked like she was holding his lower lip out because because honestly, I really thought the first part of the movie was kind of boring.
Right.
So I was just like playing my guitar, like kind of just
Totally.
like doing some picking and diddling, and by the second half is when I really started getting into it. But I still had my guitar in my hand. I was kind of but I was a lot more focused, and. When I looked up, I thought she was holding his lower lip and cutting his lower lip off.
Right.
And that to me freaked me the hell out. Like that's
why?
Yeah. Why would you? Because
Such a random.
Yeah. Because then you just be looking at someone's bottom teeth, and like that's kind of disgusting.
You're like Dr. Phibes-ish.
Yeah. So I thought that I was that part. Like I was like, what the hell? Like really good. The second half totally feels like a different movie.
Right. The sewing sequence, horrifying. There was a moment where the only subtitle on your screen just said sewing. I was like, that word's never been more disturbing by itself than because it was shot over Mrs. Green's, you're seeing over her shoulder, you're seeing Angela in the chair, but you're seeing it all from behind. And you see that motion the arms do, like kind of like a music conductor, except for sewing. And you're like, oh my God, this is not good.
What'd you think of the effects, like the makeup and stuff like that?
I felt like there was a reason the movie was as dark as it was at parts. I felt like even they knew there were some things they weren't pulling off, like The Unborn. There are points where Jumbie doesn't look great, and there's points where he looks amazing. So I felt like there were points where the girls were threatening and interesting and kind of haunting. The little girls, like the Shining twins, but add one. And then there were times where it didn't look great to me. The jump scare from the mannequin worked.
That scared me too.
Really well.
Yeah.
So I thought that effect was really good. Honestly, the most amazing special effect in the movie is Florence Pugh's acting. Right? So it just felt like someone was in there who had thought through how a person would actually be instead of how this would usually go in a movie like this. Like in a movie like this, it usually would be they would say out loud. Like if you think of The Gallows, they're telling you out loud what the character's thinking, because the characters, it's very important to them that their backstory or their trauma or their whatever. Florence Pugh is accomplishing that with half of the wink of an eye, right? So it's kind of haunting. I got the same feeling as the acting that happened with in Midnight Mass with seagull, right? So like it's that to me. That was the greatest special effect. But no, I don't think some of the effects were very good. I think some of them were okay.
It reminded me of like when Spirit Halloween rolls into town, and like you go in and they have like the pre-made makeup things. The sewed lips look like a lot of those like pre-made,
totally. And the girls too.
Yeah,
had like that pre-made like. Yeah,
it's so funny. I feel like I've been saying, oh no, I think most of the things I've said are negative, but I don't feel really negative about the movie. Like I kind of
that's the thing. So I wrote this in my notes. No, wait, you tell me. You kind of what?
I can see a movie like this, because I just finished watching it before recording.
Right.
I think with like sitting with it a little bit, there are some parts that I think will grow on me because. What's funny is even though I was bored, like there's movies like when you're watching it and you're bored and you're completely checked out, there was something about it that I didn't.
Right.
Maybe it was because I knew we had to do an episode.
Right.
But there was still that hook of like Florence Pugh carrying all the scenes.
Right.
And the idea behind it is naturally interesting.
Right.
When you fake something, the idea of like faking something and then it really happening to you feels very Tales from the Crypt.
Yep.
To me,
yep.
And I think there is something that had like a drawing appeal to that type of story.
Yeah, it's a great shape of it's like the monkey's paw. That story always works, no matter how you because the shape works.
Yeah,
it's right. That's the thing is, so here I wrote this actually in the notes. Right when I was watching it, I was like, is if you're challenged to do something, right? Like if you're trapped on an island. If we're stranded on an island and with what's available on the beach, you got to make a raft and you know that the next island is like 70 miles away. We got to make it 70 miles, right? You're going to build a raft. Is it going to be the greatest raft ever built? No. The grade of that raft is if you make it. It's not how it looks.
Yeah.
It's not like whatever. That's the grade of the raft because it's not going to look great, right? I really feel like this movie was half just trying to get a horror movie made. Right. And get to the destination because there were parts where it just didn't feel like the effort was extraordinary or like whatever. But then the other half of the movie felt way better than that. And it was weird because it wasn't just second half, first half. It was like in layers, right? Sometimes a scene would be great and then go to, wait, why are you saying this? But there were interesting things happening. Like, for example, that I don't know the answer to. For example, why did the ghosts manifest only at Mrs. Green's if Florence Pugh and her brother are actually psychic? Why didn't they see any ghosts at any other of the jobs? The dozens, if not hundreds of con jobs, were there no ghosts at any of those? And this is the first ghost they've come across? Or did their ability to see the ghosts come alive for some reason here? And if it came alive... was it manipulated by a force to come alive?
Yeah, because in the first, that's a great question. Because in the first haunt, Florence Pugh's character is shocked to see that first ghost.
Right. Yeah. Because they've been conning the whole time. They're not really psychic. They both know they're con artists. Neither of them believe. Right. Angela, starts to experience weird things, but she just writes it off because they're traumatized. They have a mom who killed herself, and they were. Went through hell, and their lives are not together. You shouldn't be conning people for money, right? What they're doing is inherently bad. It's weighing on Angela's character, right? So, but it was just interesting to me, like, why are the ghosts appearing here? And I thought it would be interesting if the answer to it was these were the only real ghosts they ever came across, and that real ghosts are super rare. Right? But do exist, but just way rarer than you'd think. And if you went to 1,000 decrepit mansions across America, there'd be 3 with real ghosts in them, right? And I thought that's what the movie might be saying, and if it was, I thought that was interesting.
The movie did open up with a quote.
It did.
That's how you know it was like when people are dead, don't come back. Sometimes spirits stay. Or something.
It wasn't a limerick.
It wasn't. Wasn't a great quote. I mean, when the movie starts with a quote, you're like, come on, man. Like,
it only works if you're the Coen brothers. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's very, very rare.
Right. So the ghost part was interesting. I also, I guess the last thing is I thought There's been what I think of as the triumph of place lately in movies and horror, right? It didn't used to be that way. Like the most interesting thing about the Matrix isn't Zion, right? Zion's fine, but we're not watching Matrix. If there's a spin-off Zion Matrix,
Who's Zion? Is that a character in the Matrix?
No, the place where they all live, the real place.
Dude, I for some reason was thinking,
the basketball player.
Zion. I was like, no, this isn't.
You're like, no, you're like, that's not what George is talking about.
This is because his ankles are broke. I was like, what's he got? He's not playing recently. He can't. He's not the one.
No, he's not. He's not the one. Unfortunately, no. But the place there sometimes matters, sometimes not in eras of movies or whatever. But I think, and Mike Flanagan might be a big part of it. I think we're heading to the Overlook side of horror again, where Bly Manor and Haunting of Hill House and even Winchester. You can tell that they really want to establish place now. And this movie, it had some really cool shots and really established a place, but never bothered to name it or emphasize it.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like Hill House. If they didn't emphasize Hill House, it was more The Haunting and less Hill House. Right. And that's the weird part, is it feels like a transition. It's a feel like movie that half understood where things were headed and half nailed it.
The weatherman who gets it only half right.
Right, exactly. Or like the one who thinks, that I'm going to bet that the best time to buy the stock is exactly 7 days from now. And it turns out it's actually 9 days from now. Mm-hmm. But everyone else thought it was 2. So he's righter than all of us, but he's still wrong, right? So it got some things right, but like it missed on it didn't establish the place. It had a strength it didn't know, right? So, but I thought that whole like place thing, I really enjoyed every time they were situating us in a place I could actually see when it wasn't too dark, when the movie wasn't too dark to see.
And the house was actually pretty cool.
Exactly. Right.
I kind of feel like...
And even outside the house, when they're wandering around, her brother's ghost, all that stuff was shot really well. It was interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot of great shots. I kind of wish they just never addressed that it was in the 80s. Like, I just want to go back and just erase where it says like 1988 or some shit. Just like get rid of it. Because I was thinking of...
I kind of love it. I kind of love they sieved the 80s out of the 80s, and this is what's left. This weird anti-time.
I hate it.
I know you hated it.
So frustrating.
But you also hated It Follows. And it's the same thing. It's an airless... I don't think you like airless.
But the atmosphere in It Follows was 10 times better. Because I wasn't able to like completely put a date on it. And the movie that I was going to bring up was Final Destination 5. They never say what year it is.
But that they need to not say.
Yeah, but I feel like when you don't say it,
right,
you can just sort of mentally date it with your own technology and come up with a date in your head, because the date's arbitrary.
Right.
Who gives a shit what year this movie takes
unless
place
there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
like House of the Devil set when it is for a reason, but this was set when it was, and it didn't feel like
it didn't have a reason.
Reason, but like I said, I kind of love that there's one of these movies where they were like, we're going to put it in the 80s, but subtract anything that's ever been done before. And this is what you get.
I'm going to do a modern movie, and when the first scene opens up, I'm going to be like 1897. just for no reason.
I know you hated it. I can tell.
For no reason at all.
No, it's totally fine. It actually makes sense that you hate it, but I feel like a lot of movies have been dropping that era ball recently, whether it's the Wonder Woman sequel or...
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to get right for some reason.
I think Stranger Things was probably one of the best ones. Or, dude, I mean, Halloween Kills... Mm-hmm. When they did the 70s thing, like it actually felt like the 70s. Totally. So maybe they figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, right?
Halloween Kills.
That's what we wanted. Was a whole movie of that, like, because you can really do that well when you do well.
Yeah, they should just do the whole next one. No, that's a tangent for another time. So where would we place this?
Right. So I'm going to go first because I know
I'm not as negative on it. I know I've been saying a lot of bad stuff, but like there was something that really genuinely hooked me. But you go.
Right. That's the thing, is because I think that there are things in here that are way better than you would expect going into how you framed what you would expect from this. I didn't even think of that. That's genius. You're right. This is literally the first time in like how low can we go history when you messaged me like where you can stream it, and I didn't have to send you something weird back. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to be like Tubi or free trial Paramount Plus. Like you mean
Lot
like
of free
it's
trials.
always something like that. But like in this case, I was just like, it's on Netflix, and I didn't realize that was strange until you said it out loud. And I'm like, oh, that's right, it's strange. Why is this movie just sitting on Netflix with Florence Pugh in it, who's blown up, right? Like usually when someone does something, you go back and you track back. Like it's not like DiCaprio's first movie is unknown.
Yeah.
like there's people who went back and found like Children of Court 3 because Charlize Theron is over. I mean, whatever. You find these things, but here she is, and no one's talking about this movie, and it's better than that. So because it should be, if it was higher rated, I think more people would see it. I'm gonna make it 70 flat.
I'm gonna go with 60.
I wanted to make it 80, just debate in the 80s for you.
No, because then
but it's not the 80s.
Both you and the movie would be liars.
Yes. All right. What do you got?
I kind of wanted to say 66%.
How about 55? I can't.
55.
I just wanted to hear you do say
55. I would 62 or 66. I don't know which one of those numbers so right. 66 came up first.
Let's go 66. That's fair. So if you average out our answer, because I said 70, you said 60, it's at 68. That's perfect.
That's fair.
It's perfect for this.
That's fair. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes it is 55, so it's not a stretch to like.
Because the thing is, also one of the reasons we even came across this is because when you go investigate a lot of our how low can we go, when you go to an aggregator site, it always gives you that dumb, and you should not rely on this, but like it gives you the dumb thumbnail of like 5 encapsulated reviews, and we all scan the first couple sentences to get the vibe of whatever. And it's usually like for our movies, like especially the lower we go, even if it's a tomato or a positive or whatever rating, inside it'll be like, this movie's not great, but man, it's fun to see X, right? Mm-hmm. These weren't that. These were like, wow, I went to interesting places, or was way more dark and depressing than I expected, or what got way more graphic than I thought. Like the reviews seemed more like something in it grabbed them, right? So if we move it up to 68% and more people see those little reviews on there, more people will watch it.
I feel like sometimes those like tomato, like the good reviews are liars. They're like
they are.
I swear to God, I think I saw one that gave it like a tomato and it was like 2 out of 4, and I was like, but is it real? Like I forget what it was, but I just read it and I was like, that guy's a liar. he just wants to get the next screener.
I'll tell you this though, there's another secret rating happening here, and the secret rating is this is my least favorite of the new How Low Can We Go series so far in terms of the movies. I don't know exactly how I'd rank them yet, but it's definitely.
I can tell you right now, Chud is my favorite.
Chud is my.
I've been thinking about that movie since like last week when we watched it and did an episode. Like dude, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Daniel Stern and the fact that it was, or the fact that it was, and I keep forgetting the other guy's name, but he was in Home Alone 2. The father, the main character.
Right.
I always forget that actor's name. I don't know if it's because they were in it, and like I grew up watching Home Alone, and I don't know what it is, but there's something about Chud that I just keep.
Well, it's more than that. It's always more than that with you, because when a movie really sticks with you, which doesn't happen a lot, when we figure out the reasons, it's always, it's more than just that. Like there's some reason Chud stick with you besides the whatever. But you also remember obviously you're a big creature feature person. Like you like creature features.
But even the creatures that I liked, I think the ones in Chud look kind of bad. But like, I don't know, man. Like
something about the movie.
There's something strange about Chud.
Right, here's what we've done since we've come back. Right?
Okay.
So we did VHS 94. We did. Wait, is that no?
No, that was just a review.
Hold on, I got it.
We technically started with.
We did Exorcist 3 technically, Taste the Blood of Dracula, and Chud, and now.
I don't consider Exorcist 3 as part of the.
Okay, so Taste the Blood of Dracula, Chud, and this. So we were ranking Chud, Taste the Blood of Dracula, and Malevolent so far.
Weird. I wonder who's going to be surfing the list the most, going up and down the further we go.
Right.
I have a feeling Taste the Blood of Dracula is going to be like bouncing up. Like the more we add to it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it seems like it could slot in a couple of places.
Yeah, I don't know. That was That was a weird
It
movie.
depends on how much good stuff we stole from ourselves in the first iteration of this, because there will be times where we're like, we got to find a movie at 32%, and I'll look and there's like 7 viable movies, and the only good one or possibly good one will be the one we did on the last pass through, and now we're left with
You know what's gonna be interesting though is, and we should try to make a note of that when the further down we go on the list is there a point in time where the first pass we thought it was going to be a better movie, and so we shunned whatever movie we're doing now, but that movie ended up being better.
right.
There's
Got to be some.
There's got to be at least one of those.
I mean, first of all, Chud is one of those, because let's be honest, I saw Chud for the first time. We didn't pick it. We must have picked something else.
We already did it.
57%, right? I mean, we never did Chud, so that's already happened once. But the other thing is the aggregator sites are not to be trusted. Like, it's not like they're set in stone. The movies also move up and down in the percentage.
Well, Chud also was weird,
but they generally stay where they are unless something weird happens.
Something weird was with Chud. If you go and you look at the Rotten Tomato reviews of that movie, the review dates date from I'm pretty sure it's 2016 to 2002.
Yeah, that is weird. Why?
Whereas all the modern movies, everyone gets their take in there now, and it's just kind of interesting that with some movies, I think some of them age better, some of them age worse, and Chud seemed to have aged better, because I think one of the most recent reviews was LA Times. I could be wrong on this, but that's what I remember.
I think that's right, and sometimes obviously that happens with some of these. Exorcist 3 itself. Matter of fact, the only movie on our whole list so far. Well, no, that's not true. No one likes Taste of Blood Dracula, except for us. But the Chud definitely came back some. But I think here's the thing though. It's going to get really hard once we go into the 20s to find movies that are anyone even had a renaissance for. I think on the first pass, the lowest that I could scan, that I couldn't find something that I was like, that's a masterpiece. Why is that there? Is Event Horizon. Event Horizon was 23%. Below 23%, I don't remember ever seeing a name that was better than Event Horizon.
Yeah, that's kind of a high
So
bar.
Event Horizon is right, but there's I can't remember ever coming across a movie better than Event Horizon.
But how
rated under 22% or lower?
But that's kind of a great thing for just fans of horror movies, because if 23% is Event Horizon, then you got from 23 all the way up to 99, and that is such a huge ass chunk to pull movies from.
And also the part of doing this again is to also try other aggregators, but maybe find things we missed. There might be a masterpiece down there at 18. Who knows? What do I know? That's what I'm hoping for. We're just not there yet. We need your help, listeners, to find those diamonds in the really rough, because we only get one crack at it. Like, you're hearing us regret that we missed Chud 3 years ago.
I do. That still blows my mind.
Don't let us miss.
Yeah,
again.
don't let us miss a Chud. So join. Primarily all the voting.
Yes.
Primarily all the voting is happening on the Facebook group.
Yes.
Join us there on at Hollow Weekly.
Right, but if you're understandably opposed to Facebook, you can connect to us Instagram.
Just if you have a good one, just message us anywhere else. Literally anywhere else.
Yep.
And until next time, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. And if you're listening to this and you're one of the listeners in the States, while you're gnawing on some turkey leg tomorrow, because I'll probably get this up tonight. Put in your vote. Put in your vote for 54%. I don't even know what is in 54%.
I don't either. I didn't look that far ahead this time. I want this to be a little more surprising for me. The first time we did it, I was so excited. I scanned a lot of the percentage, just a real quick scan, but I looked at a lot of them. So this time I want it to be fresh. So I haven't looked at that.
It is way more exciting when I don't, because this movie, even just this, I feel like this movie got thrown at me this morning, and I was like, all right, let's just hop in.
Well, you know what's funny is, I hate to say it and throw ourselves under the bus, but the Facebook group picked Chud, We picked Malevolent.
That's a great point. We
should
suck at picking movies. We are really bad.
No, I don't think we suck. I love this movie, but yeah, I think that you're. Yeah, I mean, I can see. It's not a chud. So
It is a chud.
It's weird to say. I don't even. Know
it is, but it ain't.
Here, all right.
Okay, until next time, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. Help us vote for the next movie, and we'll see you at 55%.
54%. Bye, guys.
54%. I can't drive 55 anymore. All right, we're getting out of here.